before you learned your mother's name, before you knew the weight of gravity, the sting of cold air, the blinding cruelty of light. You dreamed. There is a place that no living person can return to. A sanctuary sealed by biology, guarded by darkness, insulated from the noise of the world above. Warm, rhythmic, profoundly, almost unbearably intimate. We call it the womb. But for 9 months, for your 9 months, it was the entire universe. Science has mapped the stars. We have sent machines to the edge of the solar system, decoded the architecture of DNA, peered into the first seconds of the Big Bang. And yet, what happens in the mind of a child not yet born remains one of the most quietly astonishing mysteries in all of human biology. Do they think? Do they feel? And the question that haunts us most, the one that sits at the intersection of neuroscience and philosophy, and something that has no name, yet do they dream? Here is the paradox that should stop you in your tracks. A fetus has never seen a face, has never heard a word clearly enough to understand it, has never felt the sun, has never tasted anything but the warm salt of amniotic fluid, has never, in any meaningful sense we can define, experienced the world. And yet, at a certain point in development, something extraordinary begins. The brain, still assembling itself in the dark, starts to do something deeply, profoundly human. It begins to generate its own reality. What does a mind dream of when it has never been awake? What images fill the darkness behind eyes that have never opened to the light? What stories does the brain tell itself in the only language it has ever known: sensation, rhythm, warmth, and the deep, unceasing drum of a mother's heart? These are not idle questions, because somewhere in the answers, in the science and the philosophy and the beautiful, unresolved uncertainty, lies something extraordinary about what it means to be human. Before the first breath, before the first name, before the world could claim you, you were already dreaming. For most of human history, the womb was silence, a sacred unknown. Philosophers speculated, poets imagined, mothers wondered. But in the latter half of the 20th century, science found a way to listen, and what it heard changed everything. Around the 28th week of pregnancy, something shifts deep inside the developing brain, something that, until that moment, had never existed in that body before. Sleep. Not the simple, dreamless rest of a body conserving energy, but sleep with architecture. Sleep with stages. Sleep with a phase that neuroscientists consider the most extraordinary state the human brain ever enters. Rapid eye movement sleep. REM sleep. The same state in which you, as an adult, do your most vivid dreaming. The same electrical storm behind closed eyes that conjures faces and places and stories from nothing. The same neural fireworks that make you wake at 3 in the morning with your heart pounding and a fading world dissolving at the edges of your memory. At 28 weeks, a fetus begins to dream. We know this not from speculation, but from science. Ultrasound technology, advanced enough now to observe the fetus in remarkable detail, has captured something that once seemed impossible: the rapid, flickering movement of eyes beneath sealed lids, the same darting, searching motion that your own eyes make right now when you dream. Eyes that have never seen anything, moving as if they are watching. But the evidence does not stop there. Researchers measuring fetal brain activity have identified clear, distinct sleep cycles as early as the 3rd trimester. The brain waves shift, the patterns change, There are periods of deep, quiet rest, and then, reliably, cyclically, periods of intense electrical activity that mirror, with striking precision, the REM cycles of a newborn, of a child, of an adult. The architecture of dreaming appears in the brain before the brain has a single memory to draw from, before a single image has ever entered through the eyes, before a single sound has been fully decoded. The machinery of dreams is already running. And here is what makes this extraordinary beyond measure. REM sleep is not a luxury. It is not a curiosity of consciousness. Scientists now believe it is essential to the developing brain. That the dreaming state is, in fact, one of the primary ways the fetal brain builds itself. In the absence of external experience, the brain turns inward. It simulates, it rehearses, it dreams, not as a side effect of development, but as the engine of it. The darkness of the womb is not empty. It is a classroom. And the lessons being taught there are written not in words, but in the electrical whispers of a mind learning what it means to be alive. So the question is no longer whether the unborn dream. The question, the deeper, stranger, more beautiful question, is what they dream of. And that is where science ends and wonder begins. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a world with no images, no faces, no colors, no horizon line stretching into distance, no memory of a sunset, a smile, a falling leaf. Imagine a world that is only sensation, warmth that surrounds you completely, like an embrace that never ends, a rhythmic pressure, rising, falling, rising, the slow tide of a breathing body that is not your own. A sound so constant, so deep, so present that it is not a sound at all anymore. It is simply the texture of existence. This is the only world the dreaming fetus has ever known. And so, this is the world it dreams of. Scientists and developmental psychologists have spent decades asking a deceptively simple question. Without visual experience, without language, without narrative, what is the raw material of fetal dreams? The answer, they believe, lies in the body itself. The womb is not silent. It is not still. It is not empty. It is, in fact, one of the richest sensory environments the human body will ever inhabit. There is the heartbeat, not as you hear it from the outside. That clean, clinical rhythm of a monitor in a hospital room. From inside, the mother's heartbeat is enormous. It is a presence, a bass note that resonates through fluid and tissue and bone. It is the first sound the developing ear learns to recognize, and researchers believe it becomes so deeply encoded in the fetal nervous system that it remains for the rest of that person's life, the sound most closely associated with safety. This is why a newborn, screaming and inconsolable, will sometimes fall silent when placed against a chest, not because of the warmth, not because of the pressure, because of the sound they have been dreaming of. There is the voice, muffled, yes, filtered through layers of water and tissue and distance, but present, unmistakably, powerfully present. Studies have shown that fetuses begin responding to their mother's voice as early as the 16th week. By the 3rd trimester, they don't just hear it, they recognize it. The heart rate changes, the movement changes, something in the body orients. The way a plant turns toward light, but older, more instinctive, more profound. And if the brain is already encoding the mother's voice during waking states, registering its rhythm, its cadence, its emotional texture, then it is reasonable to believe that voice follows the fetus into sleep into the dream, a sound without a face, a warmth without a name, a presence that is everything, because it is the only everything there is. There is touch. The amniotic fluid is not passive. It moves. It responds. When the mother breathes, the fluid shifts. When she walks, it sways. When she laughs, and this is perhaps the most tender detail in all of fetal science, the whole liquid world of the fetus trembles slightly, like the surface of a lake disturbed by a distant stone. The fetus feels all of this, and in the later weeks, it does more than feel. It reaches, it turns, it presses its hands against the walls of its world. Those walls that breathe and pulse and give way slightly under pressure, then press gently back. Imagine dreaming of hands that haven't yet touched anything, and yet already know the feeling of being held. There is taste. The amniotic fluid carries flavors. It changes subtly with the mother's diet: garlic, vanilla, carrot, sweetness, and the fetus, swallowing and tasting from as early as the 14th week, is already forming preferences, already developing a relationship with flavor before the first meal, before the first hunger, before the first cry that says, "I need something I cannot name." These flavors, researchers believe, become part of the sensory vocabulary of the dreaming brain. Not images, not stories, but something richer, perhaps, and stranger. A dream made entirely of feeling, of warmth and rhythm and the familiar taste of a world you never chose, but somehow already love. This is the symphony of the unborn. No melody you could write down, no lyrics, no beginning or end that you could mark on a page, just sensation, cycling endlessly through a brain that is learning, in the only way it can, what it means to exist. And somewhere in that cycling, in that deep electrical rehearsal of a life not yet begun, perhaps something else is also being dreamed. Something older than memory. Something that did not begin with this particular body, in this particular womb, in this particular moment in time. Something inherited. There is a theory that lives at the edge of neuroscience, not yet proven, not yet dismissed, that asks a question so strange, so quietly radical, that most scientists will only discuss it in careful, measured tones. What if the fetus doesn't only dream of what it has felt? What if it also dreams of what its ancestors survived? The science of epigenetics has rewritten much of what we thought we knew about inheritance. We now understand that trauma, experience, and environment can leave chemical marks on DNA. Marks that are passed from parent to child, from grandparent to grandchild, carried forward through generations like a letter sealed inside the body, written in a language we are only beginning to translate. Studies in mice have shown that a fear conditioned in one generation can appear, unprompted, unexplained, in the next, not learned, not taught, simply there. Encoded somewhere beneath memory, beneath experience, in the architecture of the nervous system itself. If fear can be inherited, can dreams be inherited too? Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, the idea that beneath the personal mind lies something older and shared, a vast, dark reservoir of images and instincts accumulated over millennia of human experience. Archetypes, patterns, stories the species tells itself before any individual is old enough to tell their own. Jung could not have known about epigenetics. He could not have known about REM sleep in utero. And yet, looking back, it is difficult not to feel that he was reaching, with the tools of his time, toward the same mystery. Perhaps the dreaming fetus is not only rehearsing its own future, perhaps it is also being shown the past, the memory of warmth when warmth was survival, the instinct toward sound, toward heartbeat, toward the specific frequency of a human voice, the ancient knowledge of how to need, how to reach, how to recognize safety in the dark. None of this was learned in the womb. All of it was waiting there. We are not born as blank pages. We arrive already written. In ink we did not choose, in a language older than our own name, carrying within us the accumulated dreaming of every ancestor who survived long enough to pass something forward. The womb, then, is not just a beginning, it is also a library. And in those final weeks of darkness, the newest reader is already turning the first pages. And then it ends, not gradually, not gently. All at once, the warm, dark world that was everything simply ceases to be. The walls close in, the fluid recedes. The long, rhythmic dream is interrupted by something overwhelming and irreversible. The world arrives, light, cold, sound without water to soften it. Gravity, felt for the first time, pulling at a body that has only ever known weightlessness, and a silence where the heartbeat used to be. That great, constant drum that was the first thing this mind ever known. Birth may be the most intense sensory experience a human being ever undergoes. A rupture between two worlds so complete that the brain cannot form a conscious memory of it. And yet, something is carried through. Watch a newborn in the first hours of life, simply resting. The eyes move beneath the lids, the small hands open and close. They are already dreaming again. One last time, perhaps, returning to the only world they have ever known, before the new world makes its final claim. This is what it means to be human, to begin in darkness, in warmth, in a dream we cannot remember, but never entirely leave behind. The rhythms the womb placed inside you, the heartbeat, the warmth, the deep instinct toward safety and connection. Those rhythms never fully stop. They simply go quiet, waiting to be recognized